You know that feeling when you walk down a street and one building just seems right, like it's always been there? While another one, maybe right next door, just feels off. Well, there's a kind of invisible ingredient that makes all the difference, and today we're going to pull back the curtain on that very secret. The architect Renzo Piano absolutely nailed it with this quote. I mean, think about it. You can turn off a bad song, you can close a bad book, but you can't just unsee the building across the street. Architecture is always there. It's the backdrop to our lives, and that gives it this incredible power and, frankly, a pretty huge responsibility. Which brings us right to the big question, doesn't it? What is that secret sauce? What's the magic that makes one building feel like it's a natural part of the scenery while another feels like an uninvited guest at a party? Well, the answer comes down to a single powerful word: context. It's this core idea that no building ever stands alone. It's always, always part of a bigger picture. And understanding that picture is everything.
So, what do we actually mean by context? It's basically everything that surrounds a building and gives it meaning. We're talking about the land it's on, the weather, the local history, the culture, and of course, all the other buildings around it. Okay, check this out. This simple illusion explains it perfectly. That circle in the middle, it never actually changes size, not one bit. But our brain is convinced it does, all because of the other shapes around it. That is context in action. It literally changes how we perceive the world.
So how do architects actually use this idea? Well, there's a whole philosophy built around it, often called contextualism. You can think of it as the art of creating architecture that listens, that actually pays attention to the world it's about to become a part of. And this really shows you the two big schools of thought. On one hand, you have contextualism, which is all about joining the conversation that's already happening. But on the other hand, you have philosophies like deconstructivism, which are sometimes designed to be loud, to create friction, to challenge everything around them. Both have their place for sure, but today we're really digging into that art of fitting in. Now, even within contextualism, there are different flavors. For our purposes, we're going to zero in on the first two you see here, because they just beautifully get to the heart of the idea: vernacular and regional architecture. First up, vernacular. This is like the folk music of architecture. It's not something dreamed up by some famous architect. Nope. This is design that has evolved over generations, using whatever materials were right there to solve very specific local problems. Think of a classic Italian trullo or an Irish cottage. That's vernacular. Then you've got regionalism, which takes that idea and gives it a modern spin. An architect practicing regionalism will study those local traditions, but they'll blend them with modern technology and contemporary ideas. The goal is to create something that is totally of its place, but also totally of its time. Okay, so let's get practical. How does all this theory actually play out in the real world? For an architect, reading the room is the whole game, and that room can be anything from a wild, untouched forest to a crowded city block. Totally different challenges. Let's start out in the wild. How do you design a building that doesn't just feel like you've conquered a piece of land, but that you've actually collaborated with it? An architect who really listens becomes a student of the land. They're not just looking at it, they're studying it. They're mapping the path of the sun to control light and heat. They're thinking about how the wind moves, how the rain falls. They're even looking at the rocks and trees on the site to see what materials it offers up. The idea is to have the design almost grow from the site itself. Okay, just look at this place. A waterfall cascading over rocks in a Pennsylvania forest. It's raw, it's powerful, it's beautiful. Now, imagine someone told you, build a house here. I mean, where would you even begin? What could you possibly do? And this was Frank Lloyd Wright's answer. It's just breathtaking. He didn't build the house next to the waterfall or with a view of the waterfall. He built it on top of the waterfall. It became part of it. Those concrete terraces shoot out just like the natural rock ledges. It's probably the most famous example ever of architecture having a conversation with nature. And this quote from Frank Gehry just sums it up perfectly. Falling water was unbelievably modern for its time, but because it's so completely, utterly tied to that one specific spot on Earth, it feels timeless. It feels like it's always been there. All right, so let's switch gears. What happens when the context isn't trees and rocks, but other buildings? How do you add a new building to a city street where the conversation has been going on for maybe hundreds of years? This is the real tightrope walk of urban design, isn't it? How do you create something for today's needs, something innovative, without just erasing the very history and character that makes that street special in the first place?
It really boils down to two paths. You can respect what's already there, the urban fabric. You look at the shapes, the rhythms of the windows, the materials, and you try to add a new, harmonious note. Or you can just ignore all that and create something that completely clashes, creating what some people call visual pollution. And we have all seen this. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that building that looks like a spaceship just landed. It's too tall, it's too shiny, it's just completely out of tune with everything around it. It's not contributing, it's just shouting over everyone else.
But then you see something like this. This building is clearly new, it's modern, but it just feels right. And why? Because it's listening. You see how its height lines up with its neighbors? How its windows create a similar rhythm? The materials might be new, but they complement the older tones. It's a respectful conversation between then and now.
So let's bring it all home. Why does any of this architectural jargon actually matter in our day-to-day lives? Because here's the big takeaway. No building is an island. Every single one is a piece of the giant puzzle that makes up our towns, our cities, our world. And when a new piece fits in just right, it makes the entire picture better. But when it doesn't, the whole puzzle just feels a little bit broken.
So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. The next time you walk down your own street, I want you to look at it with new eyes. Don't just see separate buildings. See the relationships. See the conversation. Ask yourself, what story are these buildings telling me together? I think you might be surprised by what you find.